Well, I'm excited that people are coming on to our Facebook Live. We'll be starting in just a couple of minutes where we have our special guest, Pamela Varma, and she will be talking about both joyful guidance and Kauai Stories. So I'm excited to get started and just waiting for folks to come online. And it's great to continue the After Lunch series. We've been doing this since May, and we've had fabulous guests, and we have another one today in Pam Varma. So we will just wait a minute more or two while people come on live and we're ready to start. So yay. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Debra Valentina from Creativity. I'm an intuitive business and life coach and a host for this fabulous Centers for Spiritual Living After Lunch series. So welcome, Pam. It's great to have you here today for our dialogue about your beautiful work with joyful guidance and your love for telling people stories. So for those of you watching now or later, I would love to introduce you to our special guest, Pamela Varma. Pamela is a gifted channeler, connecting people with divine wisdom and providing personalized advice to enable peace, happiness, and healing. And don't we all want that? So Pam is also a writer who specializes in telling people stories. Her Kauai Stories books, which is a series, captures life and adventure on the beautiful garden island of Kauai. So welcome again, Pam. It's great to have you.
It's wonderful to be here. Good to see you, Deb.
Thanks. So to begin, I'd love to have you share with our audience, what is joyful guidance and how does it help people?
Joyful Guidance is the name I've given my company through which I provide personalized readings, if you will. It's actually personalized connection with your celestial guidance team. Some people call that your spirit guides. Some people call it spirit. Some people call it the universe. It's all the same energy. And through that, you can ask anything you want and receive guidance that can help you in your life. I called it Joyful Guidance because, number one, life is supposed to be fun. And the more guidance I receive and channel for folks, that is always the theme. And maybe most importantly, for those of us who like to consider ourselves deliberate manifestors, is guidance reminds us that there is more leverage in manifesting through joy than through angst or determination or pushing through or powering through things. So the reason we all want anything or think we want anything is we think it's going to make us feel better. We think we're going to be more joyful, whether we have that wonderful relationship or more money or the new car, or better career or time off or no more COVID or what all the things that we want. And they run the gamut from large to small. We all believe these things are going to make us more joyful. So guidance reminds us that if we are joyful during the process of wishing for and manifesting what we want, we not only can get things faster and more effectively, but the unfoldment is more joyful as well. And there are a couple things that guidance wanted me to share just to kind of set the groundwork before we move on. Is true guidance is when it's true celestial guidance, it is always gentle, it is never harmful, and it comes through only with recommendations. They may be strong recommendations at times, but they are only recommendations. We as humans always have free choice. So if we're not in the mood to do what guidance suggests, we don't have to. There's nobody forcing us. So it's a very benevolent force. It's only for our own good. And if you ever feel anything that's not kind or not gentle or feels harmful, it is not your true guidance. That's really important to know.
Well, I love that. I get actually goosebumps at the end of that for as a reminder about guidance. You know, our true guidance is benevolent. And I also love the piece at the beginning about um, joy versus pushing through. And I'm sure, well, I know I can totally relate to that because in my younger corporate days, pushing through was my mode of operation.
Right.
So I really love the reminder about you know, it's supposed to be, our lives are supposed to be joyful and easy and graceful. So thank you for that. When did you first know about this beautiful ability to connect people with their divine guidance, and how did you develop it, and how do you continue to develop it?
It's always evolving, that's for sure. I came to this, let me say it differently. Everyone has the ability to channel and to connect with this guidance. Some people are aware of that from the time they're really young. I wasn't one of those. I came to it consciously as an adult. I thought it would be something that I would love to do. And once I set that intention, books appeared before me and people were talking about things. And little by little, I put together a lot of knowledge and began practicing. So, like any skill, most of us humans have the ability to tie our shoes, but as kids, we have to work at it. So, it's the same concept with any skill. You do have to practice it. Most of us have to practice it until we get really good at it. And one of the things we need to do is practice trusting that we're really hearing what we're hearing. Because guidance comes through in different ways for different people. And unlike the human voice, that's very solid sounding, like there's no question in your mind, you're hearing a human voice. If you're one of the people that receives guidance by hearing a voice, it is definitely more ethereal, and it doesn't necessarily sound the way you think like an angel would sound, and there's not necessarily angelic singing. It's a lot more subtle, and it takes practice recognizing that's what you're hearing. And trust opens that portal. So I don't remember actually when was the first time, but that maybe I do. So the first time I was really conscious that I was making a connection happened to be when I was making a connection with someone who had already passed on. It was my grandfather. I was sitting alone and thinking about how much I missed my grandpa because he passed on when I was only 16. And I was having a bit of a pity party that he never got to see me as an adult and we never got to relate as adults. And as I was contemplating this, I felt and at this point, he had probably, I was about 35 then, and he had died when I was 16. So he'd been gone, about 20 years. I suddenly felt the most overwhelming love that I had ever felt in my life. And it
Mhm.
poured all over me as if somebody was pouring liquid on me, although a heck of a lot more pleasant. And it just enveloped me. I'd never felt anything like that. And it was my grandpa's spiritual essence surrounding me and letting me know that I was loved and that he was quite aware of who I was as an adult and how I was growing up, that he was seeing everything, and he always had been since he had passed on. The feeling of love was so beautiful and so um, joyful. I burst into tears of joy spontaneously. Could not stop myself.
Mhm.
And at that point, I realized, wow, that is quite the connection, and it feels really good.
What
So,
a beautiful story.
in addition to being able to answer questions for people, I can connect people with their loved ones who've passed on. And also, if you have a loved one who is unable to speak, maybe in a coma or has some sort of physical issue where they can't speak, I can also make that connection for you.
Wow. Wow, such talent. And so interesting that you decided, well, you really were asking for that talent to be developed as an adult. And I've been practicing with my guidance and my connection with my guidance for well, over 30 years. And what I want to emphasize, what you said, is that the connection and the voice gets stronger, I find, as you practice.
And it evolves over time, so when I was just beginning, I read that some people hear things, some people see things, some people feel sensations. And what's happened for me over time is I get all of the above at different times. So for example, when I tune into animals, their owner might say my cat or dog is acting lethargic, or it's just not him or herself. I am able to tune into the animal and feel the physicality of, this animal has a stomach issue or a bladder issue, and sometimes I hear things, sometimes I feel things. So it evolves as our guidance team knows we're ready to take on more.
Yeah, and I love that all the senses can be involved. Yeah. So in this transformational time that we're all in, I prefer to call it transformational time. Do you find that this ability is even more important to you and the people that you help?
Absolutely. The biggest message that guidance asked me to bring through to answer this question is that the knowledge and the understanding that we are all able to, if we are willing, to thrive even in times like these. And you and I have talked about this personally. We know people who are thriving. Understandably, if you've contracted COVID, if you've lost your job, you're not able to get unemployment, if someone you love has COVID, it is certainly much harder to feel like you are thriving in these times. And I'm not discounting that one iota. However, even with the huge numbers of people infected with COVID and the quarantine requirements and the stay-at-home orders and all the stuff that's come along with this pandemic, the vast majority of people in this country and in this world are certainly inconvenienced to varying degrees, some far more than others, but most of us are healthy. And most of us are able to take a moment and consider all the blessings and joy we have in our lives. Most of us do have a roof over our heads. God bless those who don't. Most of us are healthy. Most of us in this country anyway are able to get some kind of public assistance. Businesses have SBA loans. There's unemployment there. People are definitely falling through the cracks. I'm not saying this is a panacea for everything, but the vast majority of us have the ability to find what is still good and what is still working in our lives. Once we do that, the moment we do that, we open a portal to joy and alternate perspectives. So for example, the old saying, is the glass half full or half empty? So what happens is, if you're sitting in a restaurant, assuming your region has dine-in service restored, which is not a given these days, and you have a glass of water that's half full or half empty, if you are having some angst that your glass is half empty and you're wishing it would get full pretty soon, the energy you are emanating is going to cause, whether you realize it or not, whether you want it or not, it's going to cause that waiter or waitress to get really busy doing other things other than coming to refill your glass. However, because that's the way energy works. However, if you are looking at your glass of water and thinking, I'm so glad I still have this half full glass, the moment you drink it down and set it on the table, someone is going to be there to refill it. That's how energy works. And that's what guidance really wanted me to bring through today, is as we shift our perspectives about anything, doesn't have to be about the pandemic or about COVID, could be anything about what color you're going to paint your wall, or if your glass literally is half full or half empty. As we shift our perspectives, not only do we begin to feel better, but in that process of feeling better, our energy and vibration shifts, and we are able to draw in more of what we want from the universe. That's how these things work. You've heard of law of attraction. That's it as at its most basic.
Oh, I love the reminder. Love, love, love the
And
reminder
we
about
need reminders so much more frequently when times are challenging, like during this pandemic period.
yes, yes. Oh, thank you for all of that. It's very potent. So I'm gonna switch gears.
Something before we switch that kind of
Sure.
tapping me on the shoulder to remind, because it is so important and so helpful for us to get these reminders during this pandemic. I am offering my services at no cost during this pandemic. I'm not charging, because I want people to be connected with guidance that can help them and help them shift their perspective so that they can get through this time period more easily than otherwise.
Wow. Well, that's a generous offer, and that was unexpected. So thank you.
I've
Thank you.
actually been doing that since I think it dawned on me in maybe April or May to start doing that, and it's working really well. It's really nice to be able to provide that for people.
Yeah, well, thank you for that generous offer. So now I am going to transition because you're a multi-talented woman. And I want to switch gears to talk about your outstanding ability to interview others and to get to the heart of their stories. So you brought to life um, uh, uh, many stories in your books, Kauai Stories 1 and 2, and I know you're working on Kauai Stories 3. So in this wrap-up question, if you could please share with the audience about your passion for telling others stories and what you find so compelling about people sharing their stories.
It's definitely one of my passions. So I'm going to see if I can do this in our wrap up time frame. Um, I have been a story junkie since I was a kid. I used to be in the car with my parents and look out the window at whoever was driving near us and wonder what their story was. So, coincidentally or not, I created a career in which I can do that and just ask people about their story. And what's fascinating is you never know what is under the surface with people. You never know what they've gone through, both good or bad. You never know what they have accomplished, because most people, the vast majority of us, don't exhibit our accomplishments. Um, so the two things I like best about bringing people's stories to light is really three things. One is it allows the people I'm interviewing and writing about to see themselves in a new light. We don't always see ourselves super accurately, but once your mini biography has been set forth in front of you, you can realize, wow, really? That's how I've lived this life. That's pretty good. That's really a gift I love to give to the people that I have interviewed and who've
Yes.
graciously allowed me to ask them a bunch of questions. Um, it, and once you get to know someone, you know the old phrase, you can't judge a book by its cover. That's so true with humans. We just think we know what someone's about by how they look, how they dress, how they're comporting themselves. But once you really get to know what makes them tick and what they've gone through in their lives, most of us can't help but have acceptance and very frequently love for them. So I feel super grateful that I'm in a position that I can bring forth people's stories for others to read. And you certainly are entertained and educated by what people have gone through. We learn so much from each other's stories, but also opening our minds and hearts to greater acceptance of others, regardless of what culture they're from, how they look, how they speak, how they behave, um, because we really are all the same.
Yeah.
At
I,
heart.
yeah, I love, love, love what you said about and what you use your talent for greater acceptance. And don't we all know This is the time for that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely, definitely.
So, how can our audience learn more about Joyful Guidance and Kauai Stories? And I know that it will be put in the chat, but if you want to verbalize that, that would be great.
Absolutely. I have a website for each company. Joyful Guidance is at joyfulguidance.net. Joyfulguidance.net. There's no dot or dash between Joyful Guidance, just joyfulguidance.net. And there's also a contact me page on Joyful Guidance. So if you're interested in a free session, you contact me right through there. And for once I had published a couple books, now I've published 6 books, including your memoir. And once I had done a couple, I realized, I've just founded a publishing company. So my books and your book are on my publishing company website, which is writepath.net, spelled WRITE, like to write a book, writepath.net. And there you can see a description of each book.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing your passion for joyful guidance and telling people's stories.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure.
You're welcome. So before signing off, I'd like to share with the audience that the Centers for Spiritual Living publishing department has a self-publishing division called Park Point Press. And to learn more, you can go to self-publish at csl.org. Again, self-publish at csl.org, and that will be in the chat as well. So thank you all for joining us today, and please join us next Tuesday, August 24th at 1:30 p.m. Mountain Time as the After Lunch series continues with Reverend Karen Wilson interviewing Tracy Brown about Tracy's decades of work in diversity and inclusion, and you won't want to miss it.